Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives in the world's leading global brands. Today, we're joined once again by Stephen Frost, who's a globally recognized D&I and leadership expert and CEO and founder of Frost Included. Welcome back to the show. How are you?
Very well, thanks, Chris. Great to be here. How you doing?
Not too bad. Doing good. Just trying to keep myself together, right, and just stay sane. As I said to you before the show, I have a very small apartment. No garden, so isolation at its best as well. So just trying to get just taking it day by day, but actually really positive as the good things happening both personally and professionally, and just trying to control the controllables.
All good here. It's obviously super interesting times, as per the proverb. But we're cracking on, and it's lots of highs and lows, and trying to steady the course.
Obviously, when you reach back out again, I was really excited to have on the show. For the people that are new to the show, that are tuning in for the first time, a little very sort of high level overview about you, your work, and also how this, the current events has affected your work.
Quick recap. It's a recap for myself as well, to remind ourselves in the middle of the crisis, right? So, my name's Stephen Frost, and I've been working in diversity and inclusion for best part of 20 years now. But basically, we set up Frost Included to kind of preserve the diversity inclusion work of the London 2012 Olympic and Paralympic Games. So we did that in 2012 at the end of the Games, because there'd been so much stuff we tried there. We wanted to kind of do that with the companies. And so we've been doing that now for 7 or 8 years. We do strategy, so try and work with organizations on how they can embed diversity inclusion in the strategy of a company, not just something you do on a Friday afternoon, in the data of the company. So actually how we have evidence-based interventions rather than just throwing a ton of stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. Governance, how to make decisions, which is super interesting at the current time in particular. Leadership, so how we embed this as part of people's leadership styles. And then systems, how we de-bias the systems in an organization so they are as bias-free as possible and actually meritocratic and helpful, all that good stuff. So we do that. And we've got a team which is kind of UK, US based and operates globally. And of course, we're now 100% virtual. So we've been virtual since our founding, but we've usually done in-person delivery. And now, of course, we're virtual and we're doing virtual delivery. And so for us, the change hasn't been that big. But for our clients, it's in many cases been massive and quite unsettling. So we're seeing some clients who've adapted quite easily, and we just move the relationship virtually and crack on. Yeah. Some that have just kind of thought crikey and they're just cancelling or postponing stuff. And then others that are actually saying, no, this is actually essential to what we are all about. We're going to make it work. And so they're kind of overhauling things overnight and adapting very quickly and getting on with it. So it's a mixed bag. There are some people who are really struggling and we're trying to help them. There are some that are finding it relatively easy and we're just cracking on. And there's some that are somewhere in the middle.
I've actually have a number of calls arranged in the next few days. First after this call with a number of chief diversity officers to get a better understanding of how they're supporting their employees through this and making sure that they can make working from home more inclusive. Yeah. What feedback been from the leaders that you've spoken to, your clients, and how are they adapting to this new environment that we're operating in?
Yeah. I mean, as I said, a mixed bag. I think a couple of ways to that, Chris. One, I suppose, is D&I professionals themselves, so the diversity inclusion leaders in an organization. And unfortunately, some have been let go, some have been furloughed, but others are kind of like, just adapting quickly and getting on with the work. But I think adaptation generally, what we're seeing is that some organizations are switching very much to, embed leadership, where they realize it's not just a matter of compliance. So we did the gender pay gap stuff because we had to, because it was law. It's not just marketing stuff, just saying, hey guys, we're doing loads of stuff on diversity and inclusion, isn't that great? It's a real kind of rubber hits the road moment, kind of truth moment of, is this really part of what we do as an organization? And so let's talk about health, because that's obviously top of the mind right now. The Wellcome Trust, the NHS, health charities, are we considering diversity inclusion in our work right now to have better health outcomes, which is literally a matter of life and death? We know from what's happening in the US that African Americans are having a higher incidence of COVID-19 happening. Why is that? What can we do about that? How can we ensure that we're absolutely thinking about diversity inclusion front and center, so that when we do get through this crisis, we get through it in the most equitable, fair way, and we learn lessons for afterwards.
Mm-hmm. That was a shocking, by the way, stat you just threw out there.
Yeah, I mean, the reports out this morning, and actually, I think Trump's actually had to refer to it now in the White House press briefing, that if you look at basically the health disparities, it's quite shocking. So, for example, in Chicago, the population is about a third African American, but 2/3 of the cases are African American. Or you look at Louisiana, particularly like New Orleans, and kind of centers with a disproportionately high number of African American citizens. We're seeing basically health inequities play out in real time. It's a stark reminder of why we've got to think about inclusion and diversity front and center in what we do. And so, to your point, what we're trying to do right now is support businesses and organizations and really good women and men who are trying their best to put diversity and inclusion into the decision making that's going on right now.
Have you shifted the work in particular that you're doing with clients now? What's the core focus? So you're on the phone, you have directors, VPs, chief diversity officers. I know that you work with global brands. What's the focus?
A couple of ways, Chris. One is, I guess, where we're already in agreement. So where the client's like, look, this has never been more important. We've got to actually double down on our strategy, got to double down on our comms and so forth. So if you think about organizations that are now remote working and they've got line managers who have never managed remote teams before, then how you manage those teams is mission critical right now. So we're on the same page and we're like, right, let's go. Let's talk about actually, meeting etiquettes, maximizing participation and contribution from teams, empathy, decision making, making sure that you can actually lead to the best of your ability in the situation. And really, quite frankly, coaching and helping and training managers and leaders to work remotely and to get the most out of their teams. Simple stuff like, in a meeting, rather like we're having now in a way, if we don't call on everyone, then it can be just a really messy meeting and some people don't get a word in edgeways, others dominate, it's lost time, it's inefficient. So really clear roles for meeting, clear protocol, clear ways of including people explicitly. So that'd be one where we agree. But the second bit is where we might disagree and where we actually have to kind of work with the client to challenge them on the thinking and to say, well, why are you letting the D&I team go? Or why are you not?
I can't believe, by the way, so you've seen companies letting their D&I teams go right now during this crisis, during these times.
Yeah. Largely, in the UK, largely being furloughed, but in some countries internationally, just letting go. And that, for me, suggests that the organisation doesn't truly understand the value of inclusion, what it is and how it can help right now. In that case, we're literally through our networks, kind of trying to advocate for D&I directly to CEOs and HRDs as to why this is mission critical right now. And, with organizations we've worked with for years, that's a much easier conversation to have. But it's one that we've got to do right now. And remember that at times of stress, people, even really good, smart people leading businesses, will shift to system one thinking and will be thinking often from a kind of a fight or flight response rather than a calm, considered response. So you're often dealing with people in distress or who are freaking out. And then you have to just calm people down and get people to think very calmly and rationally about what is it you're trying to do and how actually could you respond to this better and why actually a diverse set of voices, perspectives, talents
is needed more now than ever.
Needed more than ever. Yeah.
I know you kind of have put together sort of 10 steps or sort of actions that people can take to make sure that remote work is more inclusive. Can we go through those? And thanks, obviously, I feel like we're like breaking news on the show. So I know you were going to publish this, and now I've kind of grabbed you on the show and giving everyone all the goods. So for everyone for all of you guys that are listening right now, this is like an exclusive.
We've been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of talking and listening with clients, and here's 10 things that the team's come up with that we think are really important to think about right now. One, I guess, is to be future focused and to have future vision. This is a terrible situation, but it will pass. It's important to be ready for the after. Just don't live day to day in a crisis, but actually what does the future look like and plan for that. And then you can calmly kind of think about how this is going to help you get there. So, for example, all businesses are talking about digital transition, moving to flexible working, and we've been talking about it for years, and suddenly it's happening overnight.
Whether they like it or not.
So how does it look in the future, right? How do we make sure that working is flexible, that parental leave, carers leave, what does the future look like, and how can we future-proof that right now? A second, I think, is technical inclusion, the basics. Like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you can't even get off the bottom rung, then what's the point? So is your IT setup inclusive? Is it compatible with screen readers for visually impaired folks? What about captioning? What about different ways of accessing it that are really, really important? Third is timing. So here we are, and you and I occasionally miss with timing, and we live about 500 meters away from each other. Think about your colleagues all around the world in different time zones, or think about, parents who are trying to do 3 jobs at once right now, do their job, be a parent and homeschool. Be very aware of timing, because I think
that's also important though. I love that, because it is one of the things that I've heard from a lot of peers and employees that within our network is they get to see their CEO, their leader in a different light, which really connects them and builds a stronger relationship. Yeah. So actually, rather than seeing it as a negative, a lot, I'm feeling like it's a time to really embrace it as well, and it humanizes, that leader, and they'll have a deeper connection with their employees.
Yeah. I mean, how long have we been saying, bring yourself to work, right? Yeah. Actually, now leaders are almost being forced to do that to a degree, right? Because when you see the big bad CEO or the HRD and they've got a partner hoovering in the background, it's a bit, it's real, isn't it? So it's quite nice. It kind of a bit of a leveler. Anyway, timing. So avoid, meal times and bath times and all that stuff, particularly for kids. It's important. Fourthly, participation. This is super important, right? You and I can just about manage each other in terms of participation in this session, but think about that 100-person meeting earlier on today. How the heck do you do participation there? And so there's a few things which help. One is have icebreakers, so everyone gets to speak and warm the vocal cords. Use the pay it forward approach when you're doing meetings with large numbers of people. So I can nominate you, Chris, to speak, and then you can nominate Ivan, and then Ivan can nominate somebody else. So everyone gets a word in, and there's no inefficient, awkward pauses or talking over each other and stuff. And think about the roles like devil's advocate. Who are you going to say, right, your job is to challenge our assumptions here, rather like you did with the team before making some rash decisions earlier on. Think about roles and how you can ensure maximum participation to make the meeting as useful as possible. I think a biggie then is empathy. When you said, how are clients dealing with this? What's it like? What's it like? I think a lot of clients might have downgraded empathy as a weak, fluffy, irrelevant, it's not linked to the P&L. Empathy is critical. If we don't have empathy for what other people are going through right now, we're going to absolutely misuse and mismanage our teams. Some people will be quite calm. Some will be very, very stressed. Some will be directly affected by this crisis.
Yeah, I think for me, when someone asked me the other day, what's one of the most important things, and that's I quoted empathy right now, is because a lot of the leaders are going to the teams, saying do this, do that, we need to pivot here, but not taking the time to actually, how are you,
Well, we know, right, that task-based leadership like that actually has a demotivating effect on teams, and it's actually bad for performance. Whereas more relationship-based or even kind of change-based leadership can do the opposite. Mm-hmm. And so in terms of that empathy, it's not, a nice to have. It's actually how you, be a human, but also actually motivate your teams really well. So things like just pause more often than normal, because you can't necessarily read the room, right?
That's a good one, yeah.
Because again, you or I might jump in straight away, but other people might need a while to digest that. Or like you said, follow up through an alternative method after the meeting. So how can you do things like that which give people a chance for you to adapt to them rather than having to adapt to you? I think another biggie is decision making. So how are we making decisions, right? And it's very tempting right now to go fast, to go system one. And this is exactly the opposite of what we need right now. We've got to pause, breathe. Who am I consulting? How stressed am I? What time of day is it? Am I hungry? Am I tired? Am I stressed? Have I had some exercise? Am I in a good place to make these decisions? And this leads me to the point about being self-aware, more self-aware than ever.
Yeah.
And you only be self-aware, I think, if you get feedback and actively solicit feedback. System one, system two, 360 feedback. And this is all about bias, right? That bias is not out at this time. We know, everyone's done unconscious bias training. Well, now is the time to put it into practice, right? Where if people are more stressed, they're more tired, they're on a deadline, they're in an unfamiliar situation, they're going to be more defaulting to system one and thinking quickly. And your point then about you felt better for reaching out to people, that's brilliant, because our natural response as humans, particularly male execs, is a competitive one. Whereas actually, if we can just think about this from a collaborative perspective, we're all facing this, situation. How can we collaborate? And we've spoken to a few competitors, a few different colleagues in the sector, and just discuss stuff and help each other, because this is uncharted waters.
I've actually spoken to on that point, and Dave in the comments, thanks for joining us. He said, "Now's the time to reach out and connect with old friends, share some good vibes, and perhaps get some fresh perspective." Completely agree, and that's kind of what we're talking about. And one thing I realized the other day, I was talking to my wife yesterday, is I spent more quality time and had conversations with people, close friends, in the last 2 weeks. I've had spent more time with them than in the last 5, 10 years.
Yeah,
which is crazy. People that I haven't spoken to, they're friends, but we just haven't, for whatever reason, we haven't had time to connect. It took this crisis for actually for us to make time for each other. So great point.
I mean, the final couple of points we had was one, maintaining good practice, right? So if you think about, having a clear purpose for meetings, having clear agendas, having clear action points, respectful line management, all these things should continue. And I really practice even more so online, looking out for people's welfare, mental health, bullying and harassment, making sure that whatever we consider good practice at work, in the office, is maintained now. And that should be reinforced. This is not an opportunity to slack off, right? I mean, even simple things like, I've had a couple of calls with clients this morning, those I know quite well, and they've admitted to me they were in their pajamas, and that's why their video was off. And but good practice would be get up for work, and make yourself at work so that you can be fully present. And then my final point, which I think is for you, for me, for all of us, is to really focus, right? And you talk about focusing on what's important. The human brain isn't designed for multitasking, and so when you're working work, be very present. And there's a load of techniques you can use, right? I use this thing called the Pomodoro technique and a few others, where you give yourself a burst of focus. But then when you're with family or friends, be fully present with them, right? So you get, 1-on-1 is 2+, not, doing badly in everything. I think that focus is really important, because this is not going to be a matter of days, right? Maybe not even a matter of weeks. It's going to be months. We're in for the long haul here. We're really focusing on what's important, but being fully present at work and fully present with your loved ones is really important. And like you said, in terms of, I guess, the legacy of this, people are dying, and it doesn't get worse than that, right? So we mustn't in any way trivialize the situation. We must give it the respect it deserves. That it's a crisis and it's an emergency. But perhaps the best way we can honor that is that we do focus on what's important, and we do leave this as better people, right? And I hope that's something that isn't just diversity inclusion, but is good for us in business generally.
Yeah, and to your point you just made there, that's something I did really bad in the first few weeks, and there was never a separation between work and family. And my days ended up just blurring into one. And I was half in work, half in family, and it just kind of my anxiety was all over the place. It was just too much. And now I've got a structured schedule as well. I can dedicate quality time with Robin and Tasha, quality time with my team, and and also focus a little bit on Chris, because that's another thing I keep seeing. I say this over and over again for you guys that keep listening to this, is I'm seeing so many leaders now are focusing on everyone else but themselves. Right. And their own mental health and well-being, and their own, and their own family as well. So I am a little bit concerned about what kind of support businesses are giving their leaders, because not only are they going through it personally, they're also having now to manage a team remotely that they've never done before, and in this new complex environment that we're in. And they need support now more than ever.
And just one example of that, one of the main barriers to inclusive workplaces is leaders who are really, really good at the day job, but can't demonstrate any vulnerability in people management or soft skills stuff, right? And therefore they just don't get it. Whereas now, the CEOs and HRDs that don't know how to use Zoom or have never remote managed a kind of a Microsoft Teams suite, right? And their vulnerability is on display for everyone to see. And so I think be kind. The vulnerabilities have been fast forwarded now. And exactly your point, we've got to support leaders who are going through tough times. The double whammy, as you said, of themselves being vulnerable, but also them thinking about the team. And if we can be kind and help them, then I think the legacy is quite promising.
Yeah, I was really I don't know the word impressed. It's probably a better word to use, but I'm going to use that for now. Why my wife's company, she had her review, and she was really stressed out about it because of looking after Robin, she fell behind on work. And I was so impressed by her manager, who jumped on a call on a Zoom call with her and said, "Don't worry about it." And she's like, "What?" She's like, "Everyone's going through this right now." And it wasn't about work. They spent about 10-15 minutes. I overheard it because I was sitting on the sofa, and she was like, "We're all in this together. You'll catch up. You've been a valued employee for the last 9 years." And she's like, and my wife started crying. She just started crying on the call. It was like, I can't believe it. Like, normally their environment's very intense, very straight. Then all this, and just the fact that her boss showed the empathy and was like, "I understand." Like she's so motivated. The next day she woke up, she couldn't wait to get to work and was so excited about this. She's like a new energy about it, just because she understands that she has the full support of her leader as well. So I was really, really impressed. But I know that's not going to be the case across the board.
I'm glad you said that, because it's not going to be the case across the board, but it just goes to show that if we can encourage relationship-based leadership and change-based leadership rather just task-based leadership, it's not only kinder and nicer and more empathetic, it's better for the team performance, right?
We have some fans in the chat as well, by the way, Stephen, that said they love your work. So excited to have you on. Where can people learn more about you if they want to get in touch? I know you're doing a lot of your work, obviously virtually. You're spending, you've shifted now to work with clients remotely. So I'm sure many people that probably want to get in touch and have a chat. Well, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
So they can contact me on LinkedIn, of course, here. But our website is frostincluded.com. So www.frostincluded.com. And we've got all that kind of virtual stuff there, ways of getting in touch, articles, hopefully things will help. So at the website or via LinkedIn, just drop us a note. I'd be delighted to help in any way possibly we can.
Well, before we wrap up, there's sort of one parting piece of advice. What would that be? And then we'll say goodbye.
Crikey me. Right. So after all this, like, what's the one thing?
You got to summarize all of that. It's like the best part people hate, or it's the part people hate about this show. Like, Chris, do you want me to summarize all of that into one thing? I was like, go for it.
Be kind, right? I think there's so much, right? I don't want to kind of list it all again, from thinking about the future and timing, participation, empathy. I think be kind, because that is not a soft skill. That is, I think, is a way of shifting to system 2 thinking, thinking about participation, thinking about good decision making, thinking about actually the future, the kind of businesses we want to work in, the kind of world we want to live in. So do that, and get in touch and reach out, and let's get through this together.
Well, thanks so much again. It is a pleasure having you on the show, guys. Definitely go and connect with Stephen. You won't regret it. Apart from that, thanks again for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time out, and I'll see you again soon. All right.
Take care. Thanks.
Bye.